There's a growing scam in Britain that goes after the one thing most retirees are proudest of: a house with no mortgage left on it. And in a moment, I'll show you a case that made headlines where a family very nearly lost a property they'd owned outright for decades without a single loan, without a single missed payment, and without doing anything wrong at all. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what this scam is, what it can and can't actually do to you, and what you can set up this week for free to make sure you're never the one cleaning up the mess. Let's start with the story. A family in England had owned their home outright for years. No mortgage, no debts against it. It had been passed down, cared for, lived in on and off. Then one day, out of nowhere, they discovered something had changed at HM Land Registry. Someone had applied to change the registered ownership of their home. Not broken in a window, not picked a lock, just filled in paperwork, forged a signature, and applied to have the house transferred into someone else's name. By the time the family found out, the process was already underway. And here's the frightening part: the person doing it didn't need to set foot near the property. They didn't need keys. They didn't need to meet anyone. All they needed was the address, a forged signature, and a completed form. This is what's known as property fraud, sometimes called title fraud or property hijacking, and it is quietly becoming one of the fastest growing forms of fraud in the UK. Now, before you panic, I want to be really clear about something because a lot of channels and a lot of paid services will happily let you believe your home can simply vanish overnight. That's not quite how it works, and I'll explain exactly why in a minute. But first, let's understand who this actually targets and why. 3 things happen the day you pay off your mortgage. First, the lender removes their charge from your property, meaning the bank no longer has any legal interest in your home. Second, your title becomes what's called unencumbered, fully clear, fully yours. And third, and this is the important one, you become the only person keeping an eye on it. No bank checking in, no lender monitoring the paperwork, just you. To you, that's freedom. You worked your whole life for that moment. But to a fraudster, an unencumbered property is a goldmine, because if they can get their name or an accomplice's name onto the title of a mortgage-free home, they're not talking about stealing a few £100s from a bank card. They're talking about being able to borrow against your house, sell it, or rent it out, all using your address and your equity, without you knowing until it's already happening. And retirees are disproportionately targeted. Why? Because their homes are more likely to be mortgage-free, because the property has often gained significant value over the years, and because after living somewhere for 20, 30, 40 years, most people simply stop thinking about their home as something that needs protecting. The mortgage is paid off, the certificate's in a drawer somewhere, and life moves on. So, how does the scam actually work? It almost always starts with impersonation. A fraudster gathers just enough information about you and your property: your name, your address, sometimes details found through old paperwork, public records, or even social media. They then apply to HM Land Registry to change the registered proprietor of the property, essentially claiming they are you, or that you've sold or transferred the property to them or a company they control. Sometimes it's done through a forged transfer document. Sometimes it's done by setting up a company purely to receive the property. Either way, the goal is the same: get their name onto the official record of ownership, because once that happens, they can try to do one of a few things: take out a mortgage or loan against the property, sell it outright to an unsuspecting buyer, or rent it out and pocket the deposits and rent from tenants who have no idea anything is wrong. And just like the case I mentioned earlier, the properties most at risk are the ones nobody's watching closely: empty properties, homes let out to tenants, second homes, holiday properties, and very sadly, homes belonging to people who have recently passed away where family members haven't yet had time to secure the paperwork. Now, here's the part a lot of the scarier videos on this topic conveniently leave out because it doesn't sell subscriptions. A fraudulent transfer is not automatically valid just because it made it onto the register. In UK property law, a forged signature does not transfer real ownership. If someone forges your name on a transfer document, the transfer can be challenged and in the right circumstances reversed. HM Land Registry itself has processes in place specifically because this type of fraud exists, and importantly, there is a compensation scheme often referred to as an indemnity that exists precisely for situations where someone suffers loss because of a mistake or fraud on the register. So, no, someone forging your signature on a form doesn't instantly and permanently hand them your house free and clear forever. But, and this is the real cost people don't talk about enough, you still have to prove what happened. You still have to through the process of disputing the fraudulent entry, providing evidence, possibly involving the police, possibly involving solicitors, and possibly untangling a mortgage that a criminal took out in your name before anyone noticed. That can mean months of stress, legal costs, and sleepless nights to fix a problem you did absolutely nothing to cause. Which is exactly why the smart move isn't to panic, it's to spend a few minutes now making sure you catch it early, rather than months later cleaning it all up. So, Let's talk numbers for a second, because it's worth understanding the scale of this without exaggerating it. Property fraud has been flagged repeatedly by Land Registry and by fraud prevention bodies in the UK as a growing risk, particularly for homeowners whose properties are mortgage-free or empty for periods of time. It isn't the kind of crime that happens to every household on the street, but it is real, it is increasing, and the people most likely to be targeted are exactly the people watching this video. Homeowners in retirement with property that's paid off. So, how do you protect yourself? Let's go through what actually works, and just as importantly, what you're probably being sold that you don't need to pay for. The single most useful thing available to you, and it's completely free, is Land Registry's Property Alert Service. This lets you register your property so that if anyone ever applies to change the register, a new mortgage, a change of ownership, anything at all, you get an email alert almost immediately. It doesn't stop someone from attempting fraud, but it means you find out the moment it happens, instead of finding out months later when a letter arrives about a loan you never took out. This is the free equivalent of the exact thing that paid title lock and property monitoring services in America, and increasingly some being marketed here in the UK, charge people a monthly subscription for. Many of these paid services do nothing more than monitor public records and send you an alert. Consumer protection bodies on both sides of the Atlantic have made the same point again and again. These monitoring services do not stop fraud from happening in the first place. They notify you after an attempt has already been made. That's it. That's the whole product. So, before you consider paying anyone for this kind of protection, ask yourself one simple question. Am I paying for something that will actually cover my losses and pay my legal costs if fraud happens? Or am I just paying for an email that I could get for free from Land Registry directly? For most people, once they understand what Property Alert actually does, the paid version becomes very hard to justify. There's a second layer of protection worth understanding, too, and this one many people already have without realizing it. If you bought your home with a solicitor or conveyancer handling the purchase, you may have certain protections already built in through your original conveyancing, and in some cases, title indemnity insurance was arranged at the time of purchase, particularly for older properties or ones with a slightly complicated ownership history. It's worth digging out your original completion paperwork or simply calling the solicitor who handled your purchase and asking directly whether any title indemnity policy exists on the property and what it would cover if a fraudulent claim were ever made. Now, let's get into the practical part, what you should actually do this week. None of this costs money. All of it takes a matter of minutes. Step 1. And do this first. Go to Land Registry's website and sign up for the Property Alert Service on your home and on any other property you own, including buy-to-lets, inherited properties, or homes belonging to elderly relatives who may not be comfortable doing this themselves. It takes a few minutes, it's free, and it's the single most effective early warning system available to you. Step 2. Keep an eye on your post. This sounds simple, but it matters. If bills that normally arrive suddenly stop, council tax, utilities, anything tied to the property, don't assume it's just a mix-up at the post office. A missing bill can sometimes mean someone has quietly redirected mail associated with your address. Treat a sudden gap as something worth checking, not ignoring. Step 3. Check your title register every so often. You can actually view the register for your own property through Land Registry for a small fee, and it will show you exactly who is listed as the registered owner, and whether there are any charges, meaning loans or mortgages, against the property. Doing this once or twice a year takes just a few minutes, and gives you real peace of mind that everything still says exactly what it should. Step 4. And this one surprises people. Check your credit file periodically. Even though you don't have a mortgage, if someone is attempting to use your identity to secure lending against your property, it can sometimes show up in your credit history before it shows up anywhere else. You can check your credit report for free through several UK credit reference agencies, and it's worth doing this a couple of times a year, particularly if you're retired and not routinely applying for credit yourself, which makes any unexpected activity much easier to spot. Step 5. If you ever discover that a fraudulent application has been made against your property, act immediately. Contact Land Registry straight away to flag the fraudulent entry and begin the dispute process. Report it to Action Fraud, which is the UK's National Reporting Centre for Fraud and Cybercrime, and speak to a solicitor experienced in property disputes because they'll be able to advise you on the exact legal steps to correct the register and protect your position. Speed genuinely is everything here. The earlier this is caught, the smaller and simpler the fix. Caught early, it might be a phone call and a form. Caught late, after a fraudulent mortgage has already been drawn against the property, it becomes a far longer and more stressful process to unwind. I also want to leave you with this. Fear sells. There is an entire industry built around convincing retired homeowners that their house could disappear overnight unless they pay a monthly fee for protection. What I want you to walk away from this video with isn't fear. It's a plan. Property fraud is real, it is growing, and it deliberately targets people exactly like the audience watching this. But the tools to protect yourself are largely free, they already exist, and they take less time to set up than it took to watch this video. So this week, do one simple thing. Go and register for Property Alert on your home. It costs nothing, it takes minutes, and it means that if anyone ever tries what happened in that case at the start of this video, you'll know about it immediately, not months later when the damage is already done. That's it for today. If you found this useful, there's another video on this channel covering how to spot the warning signs of scam phone calls targeting retirees, a topic just as important as this one, and just as easy to protect yourself against once you know what to look for. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.